We are now recording today's session. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for joining us again today. Good to see each of you back here with me. And I'm going to share the screen because I would like us to start by looking at the this is the TESOL manual that's in resources. So under modules in the Canvas platform on the left-hand menu, under modules, if you go to TESOL resources, open that up, you'll find the TESOL manual right there. And scroll down to the page of contents, the table of contents. Just a few pages in. And you'll see that in here in the second part of this textbook of this document, the different methodologies are all described. So beginning on page 11, you've got grammar translation method, the direct method, audiolingual, and then the communicative language approach, and a conclusion section on it. So let's have a quick look at what's inside this document, beginning on page 11. This entire document is very useful to prepare for the exams and to help you with writing of your essays and doing assignments. So here on page 9 is the grammar translation method. Now in the table of contents, it said page 11, but that's because it was 11 pages into the document. It's actually page 9 of the actual text part. And here you've got the grammar translation method. And if we can recall what we learned about it in previous webinars, the grammar translation method was the way that second language was taught and acquired during the beginning centuries of time. So we go back thousands of years, and the grammar translation method was the method that was used to teach a second language and also to translate texts and to copy texts from one document to another. And the grammar translation method was used very widely, almost totally exclusively until the beginning of the 20th century. At the beginning of the 20th century, the direct method, also known as the Berlitz method, became more widely used because it was more naturalistic, more similar to the natural way that we learn language as a young child. And the direct method was then instituted by many many educational institutions. And the direct method, or the Berlitz method, was used until the 1930s or 1940s, at which point... Pardon?
It was an expensive method of teaching.
Yes, it was an expensive way of teaching because the number of students was limited in order to be an effective method of instruction. And in the 1930s and 1940s, when the Second World War broke out, the Americans, the United States Army, began using the method known as audiolingual to teach its soldiers different languages so that when they would go overseas, they could infiltrate the enemy territories as spies. And it was important for them to be able to speak the foreign languages in a very natural manner as if they had been born in that country because their life depended on it. So the audiolingual method was in place in the 1930s and 1940s, right up until the 1950s. And then in the 1970s, the notional functional syllabuses were developed by the Council of Europe and began in the United Kingdom. And these were based on categorizing words and phrases and parts of speech into different types of functions. But the notional functional syllabus was not even a totally effective method. And it led the way towards development of the communicative language teaching. Now, the communicative language teaching was a methodology that allowed for the use of any type of instruction that would help to improve communication. Also in this document is a very useful chart that compares audiolingual and communicative language teaching on various points. So you'll find this in the TESOL manual, and I would suggest that you should copy this page, copy this chart, even print it out so that you have it as reference. That's what I did. I printed this page right out of the manual and kept it as a reference so I could refer to it when I was writing my assignments and essays. The key point with communicative language teaching is described right here in this box where it says any device which helps the learners is accepted, varying according to their age, interest, etc. So that's the key point about communicative language teaching. The counterpart to that point under audiolingual simply says the grammatical explanation is avoided. Audiolingual was based on listening and repeating what was said and copying the sounds that the students heard. So that chart is very useful, and I would suggest that you should have a good look at it and read this. Actually, read this entire document very thoroughly because it's an excellent document. Okay, we're going to go and have a quick look at a couple of PowerPoints. First language acquisition being the first PowerPoint. Just a quick little review on these aspects with first language acquisition. We can remember that the child passes through stages of evolution of learning a language, and each stage is completed before moving to the next stage. Reduplication is one of the first things that a child begins to do with their language. The repeating the syllables such as dada or mama, and that repetition of individual sounds and syllables is called reduplication. Next, the child enters the telegraphic speech phase, where the words are used very economically. They isolate nouns and adjectives. So if you've been around young children, I'm sure you've heard them say things such as, Mama, go now, or I go sleep. that type of thing. After telegraphic speech, we realize that the mother or the parent has a significant role, not only with social interaction for the child, but also with modeling. Noam Chomsky in 1965 developed a theory that he called language acquisition device, LAD. He proposed that we all have innate predisposition to learning language. We are born with the wiring in place. We just need the environment to encourage the development of our language skills. So that was a little short PowerPoint to review first language acquisition with you. And then we go to second language acquisition. With second language acquisition, the classical conditioning, whoops, sorry, hit the wrong button. Classical conditioning, the learning is understood as an observable change in performance on the part of an individual. If there is no change in the performance, then we can assume that the child is not learning anything. This is brought about in two distinct ways, either of which involves the mechanisms of stimulus and response. In creative learning, the learners bring to the learning process their creative ability to perceive and detect relationships and to recognize analogies and contrasts. They are interactive, influencing the environment and conscious of at least a part of the process of language acquisition. In a living language, the living language is one that the student learns to think in it. Words allow us to represent nonverbal concepts and to deal abstractly with experiences. Each of us knows from personal experience that our native language, our mother tongue, is a living language because we don't need to stop and think about what we're going to say. We're able to say it automatically because we think in the language of our mother tongue, our native language. Motivation is involved in language learning. Intrinsic motivation is the internal desire to learn for personal growth or self-improvement. Extrinsic motivation has an external requirement involved. Perhaps an employer requires the second language to be learned so the employee can work with international customers or that sort of thing. Noam Chomsky, the American linguist, philosopher, and cognitive scientist and historian, was a major figure in analytic philosophy. He was one of the founders of cognitive science and played a pivotal role in the decline of linguistic behaviorism. He was particularly critical of B.F. Skinner. Noam Chomsky's acquisition device. Here's a drawing of it that I copied from the internet. You notice I have my little reference right down here at the bottom, copied from internet search. It's always important to identify where you've copied it from or the fact that it is copied from someplace. That avoids any confusion with people thinking that it's your own material.
Yes.
So with this language acquisition device, there is linguistic input,
The brain.
and these feed into the language acquisition device, the brain module for linguistic processing skills combined with existing knowledge. This then translates and generates a theory of language phonology, morphology, semantics, and syntax. It can loop back around to go into this box again and now become existing knowledge and go through the process again, ultimately coming out determined as the child's grammatical competence and the comprehension of other speech to give us speech production. This is just another version of Chomsky's LAD, showing the boxes in different a different manner. These can easily be found on the internet just by searching for language acquisition device.
Excuse me, is this connected with the scientific revolution? And when they started to test the brain and talk about the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, and
It is connected to
yeah.
that theory, yes.
I once did like a presentation about this in university and how this affects the learning process. By doing like a program, you ask the students different questions, and then at the end of answering the questions, you will know where is the strongest point in brain that enforces the learning, whether it's in the right side or in the left side.
Well, the left side of the brain is used for
Artistic,
logical decisions and used
yes,
for relates to mathematics and that sort of thing.
yes,
The right side of the brain is the creative side.
are the creative. Some people, their major strength point is in the middle, so they have both. I mean, they can work with both sides.
That's true. We all work with both sides of the brain. It's just sometimes one side is dominant over the other side with different
Yes,
people.
yes.
But you're right, some people they're able to work in many different areas, subject areas, and they have developed the cognitive skills on both sides of the brain.
I noticed that with my daughter. She's left-handed, and she thinks differently. She tries to find easier solutions in math problems, and she's very fast in that. But she cannot like imagine any artistic work. Like if you give her this description of an artistic work, she cannot represent it in her mind. She cannot. She has to see the real work in order to realize it. You know.
It certainly is very interesting to
Yeah.
watch how different people apply themselves and show different aspects of the use of their brain. Definitely,
Yeah.
it's very interesting topic area.
It is.
So for me personally,
Mhm.
I have been an artist my entire life. I paint and draw.
Mhm.
I still do that, and I've created many works of art. I love going out in nature and doing
Mhm.
paintings and drawings out in nature. But I've also been in the financial services career business for 25 years. And so I work a lot with numbers, and I've done a lot of mathematical work, and I've developed both sides of my brain so that I can work equally well on either side, either type of topic.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm the same as you, but sometimes if there is one side that is extremely dominant, they cannot change a few things. For example, like my daughter, if you wanna tie your t-shirt and put it in the closet, you usually put it in a certain way. The left-handed, they do it completely in a different way, and they cannot, I mean, explain why. They just do it and put it in the opposite way. Always do things in the opposite way.
Yes, no, I understand.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I find difficulty teaching her. I prefer to let her learn alone by seeing me do things rather than teaching her by
Yeah, of
myself.
course.
Yeah, because she thinks completely differently, completely in a different manner.
And it works better if they learn it on their own anyway.
That's true. That's true.
Question.
Yes, Adam.
What about the critical period? Could you please elaborate on it? The critical period in acquiring the language, especially for second language speakers or learners, sorry. The critical period, that is the period uh, when the brain cannot accept any more linguistic features such as phonology, the phonetics, pronunciation, and these things. Like immigrants coming now, the immigrants' kids, you know. What about the critical period? The period in which the brain is closed and cannot acquire the language, I mean, language features such as pronunciation. Thank you.
Well, the critical theories, the acquisition of different accents and that type of thing is just part of the listening aspect of language acquisition. So for immigrants who are coming to a new language, a new country, it's crucial for them to listen carefully and try to copy the accent of the people who are speaking so that they can speak more like a native speaker.
And what about the diseases that affect the parts of the brain that are involved in speaking? That is the two parts which are known in anatomy. What about them? Can you please tell us something about them? The areas in the brain that are involved in the production of speech when they are not, when they are abnormal or diseased, or what will happen to the speaking production?
Well, they need to practice the speaking production. They need to practice the reading, the writing, the speaking, and listening. They need to practice all the four skills in order to develop a good communication ability.
I mean,
Even if
I need you to talk about the parts that are involved in the production of speech in the brain, in the central nervous system. The parts that are involved in the production of speech, what about they? Which parts in the brain are involved inside, apart from the left hemisphere and right hemisphere? That bucca something area, and another one, another area.
Well, certainly there are different parts of the brain that are involved with speech and listening and reading and writing. So whether it's a receptive skill or a productive skill of speaking, the different parts of the brain take over. I can't tell you exactly where the different parts of the brain are. I'm not a brain specialist, but each of us has the ability to hear, and then our brain automatically processes the words that we hear and the sounds that we hear so that we have an understanding of what has been said to us. And one of the people who who paid really close attention to this information and might even help to answer your questions, Adam, was Stephen Krashen. And he says that second language acquisition develops exclusively through comprehensible input. That is, second language students acquire language competence by exposure to language that is both understandable and meaningful to them. If a student does not understand what is being said to them, then it will have no meaning for them.
What
In
is
order for it to have meaning, they need to understand the words.
what is the role of the L1 in language acquisition? First language, the mother tongue. What is the role
Sorry, what is the role of what?
of the mother tongue on acquiring a second language or third language? What is the role of the mother tongue? I
But
mean,
there really is no role for the mother tongue. The mother tongue was,
what
we
is the connection?
we simply look at how we learned our mother tongue in order to figure out certain steps that we go through in the process of learning a language. That's what the direct method or the Berlitz method was really focused on. Analyzing how the mother tongue was learned and using those steps to help learn a second language.
As we experience right now in classrooms, we have a lot of students with difficulties. I believe because I met many people having many parents that have a child with a difficulty of learning. Some parents say that during the early stages, they weren't talking to their child. They just give him a mobile phone or a tablet to play on, and that child doesn't communicate with his parents. And this is a big problem because even in the native language, they will not acquire the language, because there is definitely no communication at home.
Yes, and communication is key.
Yes,
In order to learn any language, whether it's the mother tongue or a second language, communication is very, very important.
yes, and they teach us that when you have a child, you have to show him the object you are talking to him about or describing it to him. You have to show him images and let him touch these objects and play with them to know, like to develop in his mind an idea and connect the words to the images or to the objects.
Right. And that connects to this final point on this slide from Krashen by
Yes,
concentrating on the meaning of words. And that's partially achieved by showing an object to a student,
yes,
letting them hold an object or play with the object in order to understand it and have a meaning of it. And if they concentrate on the meaning or identify what the object is, then they subconsciously acquire the form of the language, the words.
yes,
So it's that subconscious acquisition. That's what's happening inside our brain without us even realizing it.
yes.
Question.
Yes, Adam.
What about the story of that American girl who was kept by her father for a long time, years and after years, without exposing her to any linguistic acquisition? And then she developed aphasia and she couldn't speak, and they sent her to a training center for a long time. And tell us about this story and about the aphasia and this disease, these problems of speech and this, if you don't mind. Thank you.
I think you're referring to the approach in education for many years in Ontario that did not have any focus on teaching grammar or parts of speech, that type of thing. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I'm referring to the neurolinguistics or psycholinguistics. I mean, if you prohibit or isolate a child from the interaction or socialization, then he will develop aphasia, he cannot speak. There is a famous story of an American girl. I forgot her name in linguistics, and, and she was not able to speak at all, even to utter a single sentence. And she was sent to a linguistic or what's it called, the rehabilitation center, speech rehabilitation center for treatment. And she could hardly speak. And I want you to, to tell us about the problems arising from lack of exposure.
Well, definitely exposure to hearing speech is going to have a direct impact on whether a student is able to develop the speaking ability or not. Communication is the key when it comes to development of language acquisition, whether it's first language or second language acquisition. If there's no communication around or with the student or the child, then they are not going to develop their languages. So social interaction is crucial to the development of languages and language acquisition. And that's why with students who are studying to learn a second language, that's why activities such as role playing and having social gatherings where they can talk and interact with numerous different people, that's why those activities are so important, because they give an opportunity for the student, regardless of the age of the student, it gives an opportunity for the student to develop their communication skills.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How would you apply Krashen's theory in the classroom? You could use Krashen's ideas about comprehensible input. Between classes, ask your students to watch something, a TV program or a movie, to listen to something on the radio or read something that they can relate to and comprehend. Krashen's ideas, when combined with others that provide form and structure, will enable learning. In 1994, Douglas Brown printed this document, English Language Teaching in the Post-Method Era, Toward Better Diagnosis, Treatment, and Assessment. He said we did not need a new method. We needed instead to get on with the business of unifying our approach to language teaching and of designing effective tasks and techniques informed by that approach. And Brown had 12 principles: automaticity, meaningful learning, the anticipation of reward, intrinsic motivation, strategic investment, language ego, self-confidence, risk-taking, the language-culture relationship, the native language effect, interlanguage, and communicative competence. The diagnosis, treatment, and assessment offers a principled approach to language teaching and encourages the language teacher to engage in carefully crafted process of diagnosis, treatment, and assessment. If we look at each of these individually, we see that diagnosis begins with the curricular plans and continues as an ongoing monitoring process in the classroom. Language curricula call for an initial study of what Richards in 1990 calls situational needs, or the context of the teaching. Situational needs include the country of the institution, the socioeconomic and educational background of the students, specific purposes the students have in learning a language, and the institutional constraints that are imposed on a curriculum. These constraints could be anything from financial constraints, where the school is not able to buy enough textbooks for the classroom, all the way through to having too many students in a classroom, again, often because of financial constraints the school is going through. Under treatment, Douglas Brown says, think of as courses of study, or better, sets of learning experiences designed to target learner needs, exposed by diagnostic assessments. In 1991, Cooks and Chaudron identified 38 language teaching techniques categorized by them, and they printed a document about it. There were controlled techniques such as drills, dialogues, reading aloud, display questions and answers, etc., through to semi-controlled, being referential questions, answers, cued narratives, information gaps, activities, etc., to free techniques such as role plays, problem solving, interviews, discussions, etc. Consider as well an abundance of whole class group work and pair work activities that we have at our disposal. Under assessment, we look at the methods of old that offered nothing in the way of assessment techniques. Today, the language testing field has mushroomed into a highly developed and sophisticated field with numerous facets. There's an increased emphasis on ongoing assessment of students' performance as the course progresses, or what has commonly been called formative evaluation. Formative evaluation is during the process of the learning experience. With formative processes of assessment in place, teachers can make appropriate mid-course pedagogical changes to more effectively reach the goals of their lesson plan. The notion that evaluation must be confined to summative end of term or end of unit tests alone is vanishing.
That's true.
Uh-huh.
Like in small classes, usually with kids, we don't do summative or end of term or mid of term exams. We usually do only formative tests, targeting
Yes.
the goals we are teaching.
Yes, and that's a very good thing.
Yeah, for example, if you teach reading, you do an assessment, a formative assessment in reading about the fluency, pronunciation. You ask the questions to the students to assess his comprehension skills as well.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
And this is how you build your assessment sheet. I mean, you put a mark upon these, like whether it's an A or a B or a C, depending on his performance, on the student's performance.
That's right. And with those assessment sheets, it then accumulates, and by the end of the term, you have an accumulated mark that you can assign to the student.
That's true.
Very good. Yes.
Question.
Yes, Adam.
What about the role? I have read a book called Government and Language. I mean, the role of the government in policy in language acquisition or on teaching foreign languages. I think the government has a role. For example, I used to work in Saudi Arabia. English is considered as the second language, and there is no much concentration or focusing on, because they don't speak it outside the classroom, and so the syllabus is so simplified. And yes, they teach them the basic knowledge and the basic structures and this. And the second thing, some countries they think that literature, as you know, that language carries a culture with it in social linguistics. For some countries, they have a policy that we shouldn't teach literature because literature is carrying the culture of foreign countries, and this might affect the 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 kids. It may transfer some taboo cultures from the Western countries, and they don't want that. For example, in Sudan, in my country, from 1989 and up to 2000 something, for about 15 years, they canceled teaching literature for religious purposes. They said that this will affect the kids, and because language and culture are associated. So the language is not a single molecule or single subject. It is associated with culture. It is carrying the culture with it. So they don't want this. So what I mean to say, what I want to say is that language and government there is a relation. I mean, regarding the policy of the government, or the towards the teaching foreign languages to the kids or the population. Language and the government. I want you just to talk about this issue, if you don't mind. Language and the government policy. Thank you.
Well, certainly the impact by the government on language teaching is different in every country. For instance, here in Canada, here in Ontario, which I'm most familiar with, but I expect the other provinces are similar, the Ministry of Education outlines the list of books that can be used for teaching the English language. So the government offers programs, but the actual teaching comes down to school board and school teacher level to implement it. Here in Canada, the federal government has the LINK program, which is language instruction for newcomers to Canada.
Yes, the link program. Yeah.
And through the LINK program, the federal government has prescribed teaching approaches and prescribed teaching material that teachers can use to teach newcomers to Canada or immigrants. So there is an involvement by the government, and you have to identify which country you want to think about before you can identify what the actual control over language teaching is. Because there are some countries that have such a tight control over education as a whole that we here in Ontario, for instance, we would not even survive in those countries if we went there to learn, because the controls over education are so tight.
Excuse me, here in Canada, the government has control also on the public and on the not the public, I mean the private schools, or the schools have the freedom to choose any material to teach in.
Well, the government does not really control the private school material.
Yes.
But the private schools, in order to be recognized as official schools,
yes,
the private schools must follow a curriculum that is based on the government guidelines. Because if
see.
they don't follow a curriculum based on government guidelines, then they will not be recognized by the government, and the students would not get certification as having completed the study program.
Yes, in our countries, the public schools differ from the private schools as well. The private schools follow somehow the government to lead the students to submit official exams later on. But there is a freedom with the public school, with the private schools to choose whatever book they want to teach in. And this gives them somehow a freedom, I mean, with the material they are using in the class. So, this is how schools, private schools are classified, you know,
Yes.
whether they are good or bad or in between or, yeah. But as Adam was saying, that some governments do put many restrictions, especially related to religious issues. But right now, with the globalization, they don't have that control, that major control anymore, and they started opening to other countries. Otherwise, they will not follow up with the innovations and with the revolution right now.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, that's a very good explanation, Sahar. Thank you. Just coming back to assessment, our final slide tells us that it is important to note that summative evaluation is also an important component of a language program. The difference between current summative testing philosophy and the presupposition behind methods that one size fits all can be seen in a wide variety of assessment batteries that cover both production and comprehension skills. A range of assessment tasks, individualized, including computer adaptive tests, and increased attention
Because
Sorry,
when we
the last line of the slide was cut off there.
Because when we build an assessment to students, we should build it in a way, and not in a very, I mean, the questions should vary, because we have different levels of students in one classroom. We have the weak students, we have the middle, and we have the very smart students. So we have to include like normal questions, and then we have to develop the questions into more developed ones, and then give like a challenging question to the smart students.
Yes. And that notion that evaluation must be confined to summative
Yes.
end of term, end of unit tests alone is vanishing.
Yeah.
Do you know what they mean by computer adaptive tests?
Like the TOEFL and the TOEFL, like the TOEFL,
Multiple choice.
multiple choice, TOEFL exams, just MCQs.
Not exactly. A computer adaptive test is one that there's a question asked, the computer asks the student a question.
Yeah.
And after asking the student several questions, if the student gets all of those questions correct, then the computer will start asking more difficult questions or change topics.
Oh.
Like the driving test.
Yes, because the computer is able to identify that the student knows about a certain area of subject matter. And so the computer doesn't want to ask too many more questions about that.
I see. We haven't tried this before.
the computer adapts to how the student answers a question.
Mhm.
This is the type of testing that is often used for people who are writing nursing exams and medical exams. I know people who have become nurses, and when they were writing their nurses exam, they were doing a computer adaptive exam that would it would change the topic to something more difficult if they answered several questions correctly in one area,
I see.
because the computer knows that they understand that area and they don't want to waste time with more questions on an area the student knows. They want to go to areas the student doesn't know as well
Mhm.
to try to balance out the mark that the student
The
gets.
mark.
at the end.
I
Like,
see.
like a trap.
Like a trap, yes, exactly.
But how are these tests generated? It's a program that generates this test,
Yes, it's a computer program.
computer program. Do you have an idea what's the name of the program?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
I see. We definitely have an interactive classroom. We use immediate assessment with interactive boards. Like we can give the student one question on the board, and all the students in the classroom will answer that question. And we see what is the percentage of the correct answer. For example, if 20 students out of 30 answer it wrong, then the teacher has to go back to the lesson and explain it again, because the students, she would realize that the students didn't understand the lesson.
Right. And that's a good way to sort out how things are going in a classroom.
Yes, this is an immediate testing whether the students got the message from the teacher or not.
Yes, you get an immediate feedback.
Yes, immediate feedback.
That's right.
Like the driving test in Canada.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that approach is used in other countries as well. I don't know exactly where, but I'm sure Canada is not the only country using that kind of approach.
Which one? You mean the driving test technique?
Oh, where the question is written on the board and you get immediate feedback from
I see.
students.
In our country, we do it with the tablets in classroom. If you have a tablet in the classroom, then the students can do that. If the students use the tablet in
Right.
the classroom. Yeah.
Right, because the tablets are connected to the central classroom computer.
That's true.
Yes, that's true.
Daniel,
All right, folks,
I have a question.
go ahead, Adam.
I started actually doing my assignments. Are the assignments which we have to do, are they the ones on the under the title things to do on the right side of the main page? There is a column things to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Are these the exact assignments we have to do on the
For
home
the
page?
foundation essay?
Yeah, on the home page of the advanced course, on the right side, there is a title things to do. Then there are assignments. Are these the ones we have to do?
Well, what you have to do are the quizzes that are all the way through the modules.
The quizzes they don't have they don't open the quizzes they don't open, because we have already done them in the foundation, like especially the grammar. I received an email from Vancouver saying that you have already done these quizzes in the foundation. So just you have to do the ones on the right side, the assignments on the right side of the homepage. The e-lessons, conversation lessons, the MOOC, and the midterm, and so on. If you open the homepage on the right side, there is things to do. Title is things to do on the right side.
You're talking about this part right here.
Yes, to do, yes. Are these the ones we have to do?
Some of them, yes.
Not all of them?
Well, you won't do the e-lesson assignments because that's not part of your course, but you will do a MOOC essay.
Where
And
are
the first, you'll do a foundation essay, the first essay. You'll be doing conversation activities.
where are the ones we have to do exactly? Where do we find them on this page? So shall we forget about this, the list on the right side? I'm very confused really, because I started with the right side column.
Well, don't be confused, because I will actually identify for you what the assignments are as we go along through the course.
Where are they? Where are they here on the website? Show me if you don't mind. If you don't mind, please.
They're not all listed in the same spot. For instance, with the foundation essay, the first essay, you'll only find the instructions for it down here under the second language acquisition.
I mean the quizzes. Regarding the quizzes, I received an email from Simon. He told me that you have already done this grammar test. You don't have to do them now in the advanced.
If you did them, then you don't have to do them again.
Which one we have to do? I just want to know. I'm confused now because I started doing
Now
that.
we have an essay to do. It's up in at the end of module 1. Yes, it's here. It's
Where?
here, yes.
Under
End of
second
module
language
1.
acquisition, Adam,
Let,
as I've explained a few times, this is where the first assignment is.
assessment 1. Assessment 1. I'm writing now.
Screenshot it.
Huh?
So you choose one of these topics to write an essay about it.
And then the rest. Because I'm confused, I need your help. Show me the rest of the assignment. I started doing this one.
Have you already done your first essay?
I started this doing assignment 1 now. And I prepared 4 conversation skills. Two conversation and 1 writing and 1 reading.
And that's fine. The conversation activities, I'll be going through that assignment with you next week.
So this is the first one. Assignment 1.
This is your first assignment, this essay.
This is
So as soon as you've got this essay done, send it through to info@tesolcanada.org.
I mean, show us the rest of the assignments until the end of the course, if you don't mind, please. The rest of the assignments.
Well, under the assignments tab, you've got all the quizzes listed.
The quizzes, Simon told me don't do the quizzes because you have already done them on the foundation course. He sent me an email.
Why did he say don't do the quizzes?
Because I told him even they don't open. I couldn't open them. The page doesn't open.
Did you do the very first one?
I tried, but it didn't open with me. I don't know. It is blocked. Then he told me because you have already done it in the foundation course.
Well, you're in kind of a unique position. If you've already done the foundation course, then you don't need to do the quizzes over again. But So that's fine, but here's where the different lessons, the different activities, the assignments are listed is under the assignments tab. Here's your first essay.
mm,
And then next is the conversation activities, and then the lesson plans, the midterm exam,
mm,
the MOOC essay,
mm,
and then the final research paper and the final board exam.
mm.
So it's under the assignments tab. So you wanted a list of all the assignments. There it is right there under assignments.
These are the ones. This is a list. This is the list. TESOL assignments. This is the exact list. There is essay for conversation and 6 conversation activities for the advanced, and then 2 lesson plan for foundation students, and 6 again midterm and TESOL MOOC essay, and the e-lesson assignments, and the final research paper.
Yes, if you follow this list, then you'll be able to make sure that you get all the assignments done.
Okay, thank you. This is what I want to know. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. But the quizzes, Simon told me don't do the quizzes because you have the grammar is the quizzes because you have already done this in the foundation.
Okay. Okay, and then our last focus today is on the communicative language teaching. It is currently the most recognized approach and accepted norm in the field of language learning. Beyond grammatical and discourse elements in communication, CLT is probing the nature of social, cultural, and pragmatic features of the language. It explores pedagogical means for real-life communication in the classroom.
Daniel, what are the components of the midterm exam? Are they listed here? The components of the test, of the midterm test. Is it
The
going to
midterm exam will be based on the first and second modules.
fourth and second?
Modules 1 and 2 and the first and second language, yes.
Module 1 and 2.
Modules 1 and 2. Teachers using CLT are trying to get their learners to develop linguistic fluency, not just the accuracy that has so consumed their historical journey. They are equipping their students with tools for generating unrehearsed language performance out there when they leave the womb of the classroom. They are concerned with how to facilitate lifelong learning, language learning among their students, not just with the immediate classroom task. They are looking at learners as partners in a cooperative venture. Moreover, their classroom practices seek to draw on whatever intrinsically sparks learners to reach their fullest potential. David Noonan in 1991 offers 5 features to characteristics of CLT in his book called Language Teaching Methodology, a textbook for teachers. It provides an emphasis on learning to communicate through interaction in the target language, the introduction of authentic texts into the learning situation, the provision of opportunities for learners to focus not only on language, but also on the learning process itself, an enhancement of the learner's personal experiences as vital contributing elements to classroom learning, an attempt to link classroom language learning with language activation outside the classroom. In Materials and Methods by Eli, McDonough, and Shah in 2012, they note the following as implications of the communicative approach. The concept of being communicative has to do with what a language has the potential to mean and its formal grammatical properties. There is a complicated relationship between language form and language function, In more traditional teaching materials, this relationship tends to be simplified, often implying a one-to-one correspondence, so that interrogatives are used for asking questions, imperatives for giving commands, conditional for making hypothetical statements, and so on. In a communicative perspective, our views on the properties of language have been explored, expanded, and enriched. Form and function operate as part of a more extensive network of factors, since the real-world language in use does not work in a vacuum. So in addition to talking about language function and language form, there are other dimensions of communication to consider, such as topics, for example, health, transport, leisure activities, and work. Context or setting, for example, personal conversation, business discussion, situations such as travel or medical settings, etc. The roles of people involved, for example, stranger and stranger, friend and friend, employer and employee, customer and the person supplying the service. The appropriacy of language use must be considered alongside accuracy. This has implications for attitudes to error, since the notion of error is no longer restricted only to incorrect grammar or perhaps a choice of vocabulary. If being communicative includes paying attention to context, roles, and topics, then it is logically possible to make an error at any of these levels. So that's a beginning to the introduction of communicative language teaching, and I'll let you finish reading the rest of this passage on the Canvas platform yourself. I know you can all read, so you don't need me to read it to you. Do you folks have any questions today? Adam, you've got a question.
Danny, don't you think that we have to relate the communicative teaching with the level or the level of the competency of the student himself? I mean, at which level, at which competence level we have to teach him the communicative communicative method? I mean, at which competent level? At which, say, advanced, intermediate, beginner? This has to be mentioned there, because if the student doesn't know the grammar, the sentence structures, how can he communicate? I think that what I believe that it has to be correlated with the level of the current level of the student, of the learner, current level, because if he doesn't know the sentence structure, he doesn't know the grammatical structure, he doesn't know the pronunciation, how can he communicate? This has to be mentioned. I notice this in all of some books. They don't mention the age or the competence level like the IELTS competence levels or the Canadian bench levels. They don't mention this. You just mention the communicative approach. To whom shall we teach this? To a primary school student? To a child who is 5 years old?
Adam, if you think for a moment back to the chart we looked at a bit earlier that compared audiolingual with communicative language teaching, you remember I said there's one specific box in the chart that describes the overall purpose of communicative language teaching. And in that box, it said that any device or any approach to language teaching that improves the communication skill of the students is an acceptable part of CLT. So depending on the language learners, their level and their age, you can adjust what it is that you provide to the student. So communicative language teaching is all about communication.
Yes. And there is a video on TESOL There is a video on TESOL. I watched different videos yesterday related to teachers giving lessons. One of the videos we usually apply in the classroom, there is a teacher surrounded by kids. And the kids, they don't know the language, but the teacher tries to give them words and ask them questions and let them imitate, do the action in classroom. For example, when you're hungry, you do like this, I'm hungry. When you're thirsty, say thirsty. And then the students start communicating, even if they don't know the meaning of the words, you show them the actions and they will learn them. And then later on, they start producing conversation.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But you need to provide them with the right vocabulary to use it later on in a certain situation.
Of course, yes. Yes, you don't want to provide them with the wrong vocabulary. They need to know the
Yes.
right vocabulary.
So the vocabulary should be targeted according to the lesson they are learning. So
That's
if
right.
they are learning about emotions, they should know what's the meaning of sad, happy, excited, hungry, etc. When you provide them with the vocabulary, then later on the next level, you start with the conversation.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and then we move on into forming sentences, and then into writing a paragraph about their feeling, maybe.
That's right. Yeah, those are very good points, Sahar. Thank you. That's very good.
So it doesn't matter whether they know how to communicate or not, you teach them.
No, it's true.
This is our role.
I still remember when we were in the first intermediate school in Sudan, and at that time our age was only 10. The English teacher came into the classroom with a ball, with a ball and a basket and a ruler, and what else? Ruler, basket, and a ball, and a pencil, and then he started talking, and we don't know English before. We have no idea about the English now. Then he started, he started talking. This is a ball. This is a door. This is a chair. This is a table. Then he moved to the table is beside the ruler. The ruler is inside the basketball. The basketball is under the. What's he saying, this man? We're talking to our school mates. What's this man saying? We don't know. We haven't heard any English sentence before. He just started with, but he was not using the past. The tenses. He was just using the neutral forms of the verbs. This is a table. It is a table. Yes, it is. It is. Is it a ruler? No, it is not. What is it? What is it? It is a table. Then you have. Then we used to repeat after him, and then do it in pairs, and then the whole class. He will ask the question, we answer like this, drilling. You see, but we don't know
This
how
is
to
the
write.
audiolingual
But
method.
but at that time we don't know how to write. We don't know the everything. But we used to grasp when he semantically when he points to the items which he brought, then we understand. This is a ball. This is a ruler. This is a table. This is a window. This is like that. We understand because he's correlating it by what's it called, the total body response. He was pointing to this to the items. We grasp the chunks, the sentences structure, but we were not able to write. We were not able to write them. Then after that, he moved into the reading, the vocabulary, and the handwriting. Both of them were total, language teaching method. You are teaching all vocabulary, right, handwriting, and speaking. All this is he was teaching in the same class. So that, and then we developed it. 4 years in the intermediate and 4 years in the secondary school. 8 years total. And we went to the university and we studied in the medium of English also. That was the curriculum, the old curriculum in Sudan.
Well,
You
in
are
the
looking
example that you just described, Adam, the teacher was combining a variety of different teaching methods.
exactly. He was, he was talking. He was using the total body response, and he was using the audio lingual method, and he was using the total. I mean, the total language. What's it called? The total language skills, or there's one method called the total, or the overall language skill teaching method. All the methods were used in the same class. He was a very good teacher. I never forget him. That's why how he implanted the language structures in our brains at the age of 10.
Sometimes we need to use different methods in one classroom, especially because right now schools aren't willing to pay much for teachers so they offer only few hours of teaching in second language. So the teacher is is restricted with a certain hour of teaching to finish the program, and she should finish that program fast in order to move to a next level. The students need to go to the next level. So sometimes we need to use different methods in one classroom.
Thank you.
Because of time restrictions, you know?
That's right. I agree. The variety of methods also appeals to different learner types. So some students are visual learners, some are
Sure.
audio learners, and some are kinesthetic learners. So by using different teaching methods in a classroom during one lesson, we can apply the lesson to all the different learner types at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
folks, we're
Sorry.
we're finished up for today. So the next lecture, the next webinar is going to be on Wednesday
At 1:30.
at 10:30 Vancouver time, which is 1:30 Ontario time. And then after that will be Saturday's lecture, same time. I'll see you folks next Monday. I'll be back with you next Monday. I'm not sure who's doing the lecture on Wednesday. It might be me, but I haven't heard yet whether they need me to do it. So whenever I see you next, I hope you have a good few days between now and then.
Thank you.
Study hard and get that first essay handed in as soon as possible. Finish that up and email it into TESOL so we can get it marked for you. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
take good care, folks, and I'll see you next week for sure, next Monday for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.